Well, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. So you and I are going to be having a quick chat today,
hmm
and we're going to be talking about the state of the market. And usually, the beginning of the month, we do a state of the market kind of thing. So this is kind of in keeping with our theme. It's unscripted, but it's not unthemed, right?
That's right.
And the for me, I mean, really, the name of the game right now is that if you are on the fence about selling, and your question is, will I sell because of the news that we're
hmm
hearing out of different parts of the country and everything like that? Um, there's really two takeaways here. The first takeaway is the news is never the news,
Yeah.
right? Sales are down, for example, does not mean that the market is depressed.
hmm
And I'll touch on that in a second. But the other thing here is that if you are on the fence about selling, um, and you're wondering if you'll sell, unless you are grotesquely overpriced or you are selling a lean-to on top of a pig farm, you're going to sell because there's no inventory.
Right.
None.
Yes.
Like it's crazy. Having lunch with our friend Mark Seiden the other day, who I hope to get on a broadcast soon. Mark and I back in the day used to carry 20, 30 listings. And he was talking about the state, for example, in Ossining schools. Now, Ossining is, to me, a good representative sample of Westchester County. It's right in the center of the county. White Plains is not in the center of the county, by the way, at least not geographically. It's right in the center of the county. And he said over $500,000 active listings. This is as of last Friday. Could have changed now, but
Right.
not much. There are 8 active listings over $500,000 in Ossining schools
hmm
that are active.
Right.
That's like 1/5 the normal inventory. Like it is just cartoonishly low.
Right.
And I think the cause and the effect are both this related. People don't go on the market because they don't know where they're going to go. And since they don't know where they're going to go, they don't put themselves on the market. And if we had ESP and we could see like a pop-up bubble over every house, if everybody knew who actually would like to sell,
Yeah.
everything would get fixed within half hour.
Right.
A lot of people would be on the phone with their agent saying, all right, it's time to go. I know for a fact that other people are going to be going on the market. But yeah, there's really low inventory.
Right. That makes it for the most difficult market because and going through this just this weekend, the open house, so many people came through the open house I was at, and they just they went to see a few other things, but there's really no competition for the bracket you're in. No matter what
Yeah.
go, oh, there's open houses here and there, but they're not apples to apples. The listing I have is $1 million in New Rochelle. The next listing above that is 1.3 million, and the next listing below that is 9 and change, but it's not move and ready in any way, shape, or form. So what's the competition? There's huge gaps between things to look at, so it makes it
Very
very
low
difficult.
selection.
Yeah, no selection. So that
Very
makes it
low
tough.
selection.
A lot of stress and pressure, and I had a full spectrum of people walk through that said, oh, we're just starting out. We know it's tough. And then other people who said, well, I lost out on 5 houses over the last 2 years because, getting chased out of it. And hopefully this market is getting better. It's a little bit better, but not by much, at all. So, and that's because there's no inventory to look at. I do have a little bit of a stat picture we could look at. First,
All right.
you didn't mention, I think I sent you this was the cover photo I did for the video here today. That's you and I fraternizing at some events in the past. But that's hopefully that's clickbait for people that watch this replay in the future. But this was from the Market Watch, so the back office of our MLS system. So this is for the last 7 days. New listings 828 and 139 back on the market. But then you have price decreases, just a few, right? Pendings 718, and then a couple people take it off 325. But then you have solds down here 691. So 691 and 718 in pending, and new listings only 828. That's not replenishing these two numbers by any means. So what was on already, and I know the number's a little higher than that, obviously, but this is draining the market, and only 828 new market, new listings.
So it's a net loss of inventory.
Right. So how can you compete with that? How can you have anything to really look at and go after when that's what's happening going in? Now we're still this is a winter market. Everybody goes, oh, spring is coming, but we got lucky with Sunday being fairly nice. Saturday bitter cold, but Sunday was nice and people were out.
I was out.
Yeah.
I actually showed a house yesterday for the first time in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long story, and it's a fun story, but I'm not gonna bore you with it right now. But I was looking at a house up by where Allison and I have land. I wasn't looking for me. It just the stars aligned, and I was able to cover a showing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of fun to get out and look at houses.
Yeah.
This should be fun. This should
Yeah.
not. It's got plenty of stress as it is, but it should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It should be fun for folks. So here's a little bit of data for you, by the way. Little bit of information. And I'm a big days on market looker adder.
Sure.
Because that gives me a little bit more of a message about the health of the market than the median price or the volume of sales. Because, like I said, the news is not the news. Sales are not down because it's a down market. Sales are not down because there's no consumer confidence. Sales are not down because the values are falling. Sales are down because there's nothing to buy.
Right.
Your illustration before showed that.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on the market goes. When it goes on the market, it's gone. And it's not even replenished by the new listings.
Right.
So here's an interesting thing. So we're reading about the news, which isn't really the news because it's misinterpreted, about how the sales are down, values are flat, interest rates are higher, buyers are more cautious. We're hearing all of these things, and there are data to support those things. But that does not mean that if you go on the market priced reasonably correctly that you're not going to sell. So the last market, looking at January, Westchester County, single family homes,
Mm-hmm.
just as sort of like a representative sample. So in January of 2020, which was the last pre-COVID January, in Westchester County, there were 284 single family homes that went pending, that went under contract.
Right.
284. This year in January, there were 245, a little lower. Because why? Because there's less to choose from. Last year at this time, there were 312. So one's a little less, one's a little more. Now, you would think that the days on market would speak to a weaker market. But get this. Last year in January, in what was a cartoonishly crazy, irrationally exuberant market, those 312 homes that went under contract were on the market an average of 29 days. The median days on market was 29 days, about a month.
Right.
Now, for those unfamiliar with our market, the days on market is slightly misleading if you don't know the details. it didn't take them 29 days to find a buyer. It probably only took them 15 days to find a buyer, because you want to subtract about a week or two, because we don't go under contract as quickly as people do everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So when I sold real estate up in Rochester, the purchase offer you could write on the hood of the car, send it over to the other listing agent or whatever. If they countersigned it that day, you're under contract.
Right.
Here, you can send an offer. We have a memo system. They can accept it, but you still have to do inspections, and it'll take the lawyers a week to 10 days to get their act together with contracts.
Right.
So if you're 29 days on market in January of 2022, that means it probably took you about 2 weeks to find a buyer. Now, in 2023, this past January, last week, plus a couple days, 39 days on market. Now, that is longer on market, but it's not like a lot longer.
Right.
It's only like 3 weeks to find a buyer. Maybe 4, but 39 days on market, still pretty fast. And here's where I'm getting that reference from. In January of 2020, where 40 more houses went under contract in the same month, so it was not a weaker market from that point of view. What do you suppose the median days on market was in January of 2020, right before we entered the pandemic? Want to take a wild guess?
I'm going to say it was 45.
It was 83.
83.
Now, there is no one that would say that the real estate market in 2018, 19, and 20 were really soft, weak markets.
No, I thought they were strong. That's why I went with the 45.
Yeah, they were, as a matter of fact, by comparison, thought of as being a low inventory market. We had no idea, like, how low could we go after that, right? So more than double the time on market.
Right.
And the interest rate was much lower. Inventory was higher, although at the time we thought it was relatively low.
Right.
So what's the point? Well, the point is that we are still selling quickly in this market because there's so little supply. So supply and demand is an interesting dynamic. We have got more. We've got less houses selling, but not because it's weak. We've got less houses selling because there's just less to sell.
It's not there yet.
If you're a buyer, you've still got competition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have 11 other offers and 3 cash offers, and they're waiving contingencies, right, and not seeing that as much?
Mm-hmm.
But you've still got some competition. If you are a seller, you're selling. Now, you may need to handle some things from the home inspection. You may need to wait another week or two. You may not get the same crazy Candyland bidding war that we saw last year. But the real question for a seller these days is not when or if he'll sell.
Right.
The question for sellers is where you're going to go once you sell. And if you've got half a plan, and I'm talking to you out there that are thinking about selling, if you've got half a plan, a pied-à-terre in the city, parents you can stay with, a line on a possible rental, a contract with a builder somewhere to build your dream home, your place upstate, whatever. if you've got a place to go, even with half a plan, you are in the catbird seat.
Right.
You are in good shape if you are a seller in this market until we get more competition. Now, the interesting thing, the other sort of interesting thing that we were looking at is how the impact of the return of the distress market would be. Because the moratorium on foreclosures sucked all of the distress property out of the market.
Right.
That added to the exuberance, by the way. Right? One thing foreclosures and short sales do is they kind of keep the market honest. I can go on the market with a real speculative price, but if there's a guy 4 blocks away who lost his job or is going through a divorce or is facing foreclosure, and they need to really just dump it, that would have a suppressing effect on my value.
Yeah.
Right? That has not occurred. The distressed property that has entered the market has gotten just eaten up, gobbled up as quickly and quicker than the other regular inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that changing anytime soon, simply because there's not enough shadow inventory or distress to have that much of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had a tsunami of distress in 2007, 8, 9, 10, and that's why we had that crash. Now, back then, we had another problem. There was so much inventory, we would look at one another and say, are we ever going to have enough people that are going to come and buy all this stuff?
Right.
It evened out. It eventually got absorbed. It,
Mm-hmm.
it evened out. But if you are, and I'm talking to you if you're thinking about selling, if you've got half a plan about where you're going to go.
And just jump back to the 6, 7, 8, 9. What were the interest rates back then when things were crashing and bad?
About what they are now.
Yeah, exactly.
About what they are now.
They were
6.5%.
Right. Even with a depressed market, extra inventory, all that kind of stuff, they're 4, 5, 6, easy 6 back then for rates, and that's where they are now. And so, but now we still have such tight inventory. People are like, oh, I'll wait for the rates to come back down or whatever. So many times I have to tell people you can't buy low and sell high at the same time. Also, did we read the reports on the amount of first-time buyers that are coming into the market right now? That's a little depressed. I think we've gone from, it's classically about 1/3 of the market is first-time buyers. I think they're down to 25-26%.
Well, let's blame the millennials for another thing.
Well, I mean,
did millennials ruin that too?
Well, everybody likes to point
just millennials.
Finger at some generation. We like to point the finger at the boomers too, who stopped buying their second homes and all the other kind of stuff. Now they're just sitting around doing nothing.
Well,
but
the older folks who are considering maybe downsizing,
yeah,
but are sitting on a 2.5%, 3.5%, 4% interest rate,
right,
that contributes to the lack of inventory.
Correct.
The organic reasons for selling are not always compelling enough to make one go on the market if A, you're in a plum interest rate, and B, you're not 100% sure where you're going to go.
Yeah.
And the older folks get, the more understandably cautious they might be about, where are we going? We can't be homeless. We're kind of gotten spoiled with this whole living indoors thing, so don't want to camp.
Well,
it's cold out.
The older you get, the more set in your ways, and I'm talking from experience too. Nobody likes to pack up and get things going. And I met a few of those people who came into the open house. They're like, I've been in my house for 50 years. 50 years, this woman said. And I'm like, that's beautiful. That's great. She goes, but where am I going to go? and she doesn't owe anything on it, so everything she takes, she could just buy something. It's not like she's going to be out, making mortgage payments again. Um, but she doesn't have anything that's pulling her, that's drawing her, but she's in a big house down the street. Um, and that's the way it is with, a lot of those people. Why would I go into a mortgage rate? Why would I want to upheave my whole life and just stay where I am? But really, I mean, now is, it's softening up, but it's still a good market. I mean, they keep talking about a recession coming and all this kind of stuff. And if that affects it at all, that's just going to depress the price you get for your house now and the price that you're going to go for next. You can't sell high and buy low at the same time.
It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
You really have to time things like with an incredible luck.
It's I mean, that's silly luck. That really can't happen.
All right. So all the people that sold high had to buy high.
Yeah.
All the people that sold low, they bought low.
But we've said it 100 times on here that real estate is not the investment of like the stock market. You're buying a lifestyle. You're buying your peace of mind that you're living in, the roof over your head. It's not the return on investment.
It behaves like an investment under many circumstances, but to view real estate primarily as an investment is kind of missing the point. It is shelter.
Right.
You're going to either own or rent. You're going to either pay a mortgage or you're going to pay rent. So choose which way you want to go. I would prefer, with my own life circumstances, to build equity, own, etc. But I don't look at this the way I would look at a 401k.
Right.
I don't look at this the way I would look at a portfolio or a Keo or a Fidelity account or a mutual fund.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot live inside a mutual fund.
Yeah.
There's no plumbing.
Well, I my parents were fortunate enough to have a second home, and back in 2005, they were in their shell and had been there for, I think it was over 40 years at the time. And I said, look, if you get out, I can get you $1 million. And they said, no, just back and forth from here to the Catskills. And then when did they decide to sell? In 11.
Oh.
And mom said, go get me that $1 million. I was it's not there anymore.
It's a time machine.
Yeah. I was like, it's just not going to happen. And, we whittled away from, $9.99. She got $6.10. So, it's 3 years made $300,000 disappear.
Yeah. A lot of wealth disappeared in the Great Recession. There's no doubt about it.
But, the upside to that was, like I said, they were there for over 40 years. They bought the house for $21,000.
Yeah, well.
So how's your return on that?
They did all right.
But,
they did okay. The longer you stay there, the longer it should probably work out, as long as you don't keep churning a refinance, the refinance machine. So really the takeaway now for me, and the message to, you folks out there that are pondering the idea of selling, if you have a vacant home that you've inherited,
mm-hmm.
if you have an investment property where you're sick of chasing the rent, if you have an empty nest and your rates are low, but you're mowing the lawn and, a 55 and older or just some downsized, less maintenance would make more sense for your quality of life, you're in a really good spot to sell. Now, in the macro, it's easy for me to second guess the other kind of sector of the housing industry, which is development. I remember years and years ago, I was looking at a large tract of land in northern Westchester County. It was being used for something other than development. They ran another business there. And it would have been a phenomenal 55 and over community. And it would have filled up like
in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. There is not enough. There's not enough inventory. We really don't have a new construction kind of silo of the local market the way they do in other markets, because we're already kind of saturated either with development and or zoning in just about all of our local communities. If you drive through Rockland, you drive through Westchester, it's, you know, subdivision after subdivision, neighborhood after neighborhood. What building I do see is kind of spot building, repurposing industrial property, which I saw a phenomenal project when we were driving Allison's son up to Rhode Island. It might have been in Providence or Massachusetts. I don't remember. But it looked like in Providence they were taking entire like industrial buildings, entire warehouses. And I'm talking about really huge co-op city sized buildings, which were industrial, and turning them into lofts. And I can't imagine that not helping their housing situation up there, because New England doesn't have a lot of land either. You know, they're kind of landlocked, right? So if we could get more building done, if there's builders out there who are kind of, you know, should I build? Yeah, we it'll sell. We need inventory. It will it'll go, unless you sabotage yourself and go crazy and build something people don't want to overspend on. But there's just nothing.
Right. Well, that also, you know, because of COVID, all that stuff shut down, the supply chain, all that kind of, I mean, we took a dip in all those projects and everything that they were doing. So, you know, that has to ramp up and get in gear. You remember when lumber was, you know, a piece of plywood was $180 or something?
I'd be curious to know. Here's my fancy tissue here. I'd be curious to know what the supply situation looks like right now. I don't see news stories about
it's
building material shortages anymore or anything like that.
It's come back to normal levels of inventory. The prices haven't come back to the same exact spot. So, you know, obviously things are a little more expensive to build, but there's no problem getting the materials. You know, but that doesn't make for a cheap, you know, addition anymore.
Well, it gets more expensive every year, but I'll say this, you know, when I went up to East Jabip yesterday, I went up to Sullivan County yesterday. I swung by the little lake community where we have a lot, and someone had clear cut an area and begun to build, and I hadn't been there in several months, and boom, there was a house there, a big house. Somebody built a big house with a big, pretty wraparound porch. They found the materials.
Yeah.
Right. There are builders up there. You know, if you go further up Route 17 into Sullivan, into go up 9W up into Ulster. To me, there's opportunities to still live in the metropolitan area, and if you don't need to commute to Manhattan, there's land, and there are builders.
Hey, did you hear that there was a story out that the average moving distance has increased by incredible amounts? It was the classic range of 12 to 15 miles was the average length of move. And in the last couple of years, obviously for many reasons, but now people's lifestyles have actually changed where they can work from home. But the average move last year was 50 miles.
Yeah.
50. So you went from 15 miles to 50 miles. So your sphere of where you're looking dramatically increased. And, you know, with everyone, you know, fearing a relapse or whatever it is, or just changing their lifestyle of working from home or working a different job, different situation, so that they can be more adaptable for that kind of thing. Their pool of things to look at has drastically increased. So
how could it not?
Yeah.
Right. technology has really leveled the playing field for a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
The clients I'm working with don't have to commute to a cubicle farm.
Right.
Right. Our neighbors up there who have their place are from Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot more than 50 miles, Brooklyn
Yeah.
to Forestburg. It's more than 50 miles for us if we ever end up there, if we ever build.
Yeah.
We haven't even put a shovel in the ground. There's a couple spots where, you'd put a well here. I went up there and I took a picture of the lot. It had a little snow on it. We planted a tree. Looked at the little tree.
You planted a
Hi,
tree in the
land.
woods. That's
See ya.
nice.
Yeah. And it was so quiet. I
Yeah.
actually got a little creeped out. I was like, I better get back in the car. I hope I didn't wake up a bear.
Right.
So, but God, it was peaceful.
Yeah.
And I even saw a thread on Reddit. People are asking, well, what's the big adjustment you have to make going from, maybe urban dwelling to living out in the country?
Yeah.
And it was more sort of along the lines of, well, you're going to have to get used to the quiet, and you're also going to have to get used to you're not walking anywhere.
Right.
You may have to drive 30 minutes to get to a hospital or go to the doctor or go to a mall or something like that.
Right.
I'm really seeing this as a huge opportunity for Amazon too, because there's so much you could have delivered without having to schlep out there. Let them do the schlep.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick one that my parents weren't snowbirds. They actually went the other way. They different kind of snowbird. They vacationed for the summers up by Hunter Mountain, the ski slope, right? But it was the summers, maybe 9 months out of the year. They're running up and down and going to that. And when they finally pulled the trigger and retired up there, my mother had to go to the A&P during the winter. She was like, what are all these people doing here? Why? Because the skiers, it's a ski town, right? At Hunter Mountain.
Yeah.
There's no skiers around in the summertime, very few people. But, come 6 inches of snow, everybody's walking around in their ski boots, getting their stuff. She's like, I had to park like 5 spots away from the store. This is crazy. So,
got a little spoiled.
that's what the town was built on. She was sneaking in and out of there all summer long for my whole life. And then when she finally moved up there, it was quite a shock.
Yeah.
So it's just like the people down in Florida, like, oh, here come the people from the north because trying to escape the snow.
Yeah.
It changes the whole dynamic of where you're living. But yeah, I mean, you got to get used to those kind of things.
I'd love to have a tropical getaway, but I don't.
Yeah.
I have a potential, not tropical, but yeah, the scattering of folks away from the urban areas.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, but I just don't see it being taken advantage of. And I do understand the municipalities who have been, Hooterville and used to that don't want to suddenly have this big buildup. I totally get that. It's a strain on infrastructure. It changes the character of municipalities. It changes communities, the schools. I totally do get that. But there's got to be some happy medium here because there's just no relief spout of any secondary alternative to folks who are looking to possibly move. There's nothing to choose from. There's nowhere to go. I'd love to see some 55 and older communities. I would love to see more starter homes. I would love to see condos going into old repurposed industrial buildings, lofts, things like that. Lots of opportunity. If you look at the old pictures of the Bronx from the 80s, where it's just crumbling lots after lots after, it's all built up.
Yeah. Well, what's happening now is closer to home here for me is Portchester. A lot of development going on in Portchester, and that's
going up.
Up in that downtown. Great access to the train, which goes right into the city or wherever you got to get to. But that's causing a lot of pressure on that downtown area and the overflow into Greenwich to get to 95 and their school system and everything that's happening there. So it's a big thing because it's in a great spot, great access to the city. But people need more space. There's just not enough, building going on.
I got to say, Portchester schools have done a great job about one thing. expanded the high school in a very clever way. They built up a whole bunch of extra floor space on stilts so you can still park.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's they built it like above the parking lot, and I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I've been to Portchester High School a couple times this year because of my son's athletic endeavors.
Yep.
And the high school has 2 gyms. It's wonderful what they've done there. But yeah, something's got to give. Something's got to give. We need to spread out, but we do need more inventory, and I can't say it any clearer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see how motivated the builders get, or how motivated people are to, spread out their scope, which obviously the report says they are 50 miles instead of 15. So
yeah,
they're spreading
absolutely.
out.
There's plenty of room. So, the takeaway, we're still in a challenging market for buyers. Not as challenging as it was a year ago, but it's still challenging.
Right.
And we are still in a robust market for sellers because of the supply and demand dynamic. So if you're thinking of moving,
and spring market classically is just going to heighten all that. I mean, it has to come out where, the recession is here and things are bad and people are getting laid off more. Otherwise, I don't see it changing. That inventory is going to stay low, and the spring market always has that pressure on it. So things are going to get gobbled up as fast as can be. It might not be, eight bids submitted, but it doesn't matter. When one person comes in higher than you, it doesn't matter if there was 8 people or one. So
I always tell sellers, this is like finding a spouse. It's not finding a harem. You can only marry one person. You don't need 8 bids. You don't need 20 offers. All you need is one person that wants to live there.
Right.
All you need is one offer. And that's primarily always been the regular sort of market. Like, you list your house, somebody makes an offer, you do business with them. That's that. Mm-hmm. Most homes do not sell in a bidding war if we look back on history.
Right.
Now that's been changed.
I've also said people, you don't really want a bidding war. You want it if you price it right, after 30 days, somebody comes along with a strong bid. I mean, if after 3 days you have 8 bids, you probably didn't price it correctly, or the market is absolutely bonkers, which, we've had a bit of a combination there. But, there's not that much pressure. So you have to have someone who can assess, the competition that your house is going to have, because the buyers are there. But you definitely, you shouldn't be hoping for 8 bids after 3 days. That's not really necessary. Tapping into the market. No.
You don't need it.
Not at all.
You don't need it. You just need a buyer.
That's right.
You just need a buyer. And I think on that, we're good, Tim.
Sounds good to me. Well, thank you very much. And we'll be back next week.
We'll have a guest next week. We'll figure that one out. And I'm glad we caught up. And that's the State of the Union. We're still in a robust market.
All right. Until next week. We'll see you then.